You know, if you're even a little bit into tech these days, you're probably drowning in this alphabet soup of terms. AI, ML, LLMs. It feels like there's a new one every single week. So, what do they all actually mean? Right? You see this list everywhere. AI, ML, DL, NLP, LLM, GenAI. It's so easy to get lost. And you hear people using them all interchangeably, but they're not the same thing at all. So think of this as your personal decoder ring. We're going to break down what each one is, and more importantly, how they all fit together. So what is the real difference here? How do these puzzle pieces connect? I promise by the end of this, you're going to have a super clear mental map of this whole landscape. Let's dive in and untangle this mess. All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to start with the biggest, broadest idea, artificial intelligence. And then we're going to zoom in layer by layer. We'll hit machine learning, then deep learning, then natural language processing, and finally, land on the one everyone's talking about right now, generative AI. It's going to be just like opening up a set of those Russian nesting dolls. Okay, let's start with the big one, the outermost doll in the set, artificial intelligence. This is really the foundational concept, the grand overarching dream of making machines that can think and learn kind of like we do. So what is it really? At the end of the day, AI is this huge, broad idea of getting a computer to do stuff that would normally take a person's brain power. Things like recognizing what you're saying, making a tough decision, or even playing a game of chess. It's the big umbrella that covers literally everything else we're going to talk about today. And here's the thing, while it feels so new and futuristic, the core idea has been kicking around for decades. I mean, it started way back in the 50s. Then it kind of evolved into these clunky, rule-based expert systems in the 80s. But then, bam, the 2010s hit and everything just exploded. And that explosion, it was powered by one specific, game-changing idea. So you might be wondering, how do we actually do AI? How do we make that big dream a reality? Well, for the most part, the answer today is machine learning. This is the real engine that makes modern AI go. See, machine learning totally flipped the script. The old way was to have programmers try to write a specific rule for every single possibility, which is just impossible, right? Instead, with machine learning, you just feed the computer a ton of data and let it figure out the patterns on its own. Your Netflix recommendations? That's a perfect example. It's not programmed to know you'll like a certain show, it learns it from your viewing habits. You know, a really good way to think about it is like teaching a kid to ride a bike. You don't give them a textbook of rules for balance and pedaling. They just get on the bike and learn from experience. They fall down, they try again. The more they practice, the more data they get, and the better they become. It's the same idea. Now, let's open the next doll and go one level deeper. Inside of machine learning, we find a supercharged, kind of souped-up version of it called deep learning. Deep learning gets its name because it uses these really complex structures called neural networks, which are basically inspired by how our own brains are wired. And that word deep, it's not just for show. It literally means these networks have layers, sometimes hundreds or even thousands of them, which lets them learn way more complex and subtle patterns than regular machine learning can. And here's why that matters in the real world. Traditional machine learning is awesome with neat, tidy, structured data. Think of a perfect spreadsheet. But deep learning, it can handle the messy stuff, the chaos of real life, like raw text from a book, or photos, or audio clips. That one ability is the secret sauce behind things like self-driving cars and really advanced medical diagnoses. Okay, so machines can learn from data, even messy data. So what's the next big challenge? Well, what about language? You know, the most complex, nuanced, and human thing we do. That's where natural language processing comes in. That's exactly what NLP, or natural language processing, is all about. It's the bridge that lets us talk to computers using our own language. Seriously, anytime you ask Alexa to play a song or your email automatically filters out spam, that's NLP doing its thing in the background. And this is a super important point. NLP isn't some totally separate thing. Think of it this way. NLP has the goal to understand our language, but it uses machine learning as the engine to actually get there. It needs all those ML techniques to learn the patterns, the grammar, and all the weird quirks of how we talk. And that finally brings us to the very center of our nesting doll, the thing that has just completely taken over the conversation, generative AI. We're moving beyond just understanding language to actually creating with it. Generative AI, or GenAI, is exactly what it sounds like.
These are models that don't just analyze things, they generate brand new original stuff. Text, images, code, you name it. The magic behind the chatbots you've been hearing about, like ChatGPT, are large language models, or LLMs. And this is where it all clicks together. You ready? LLMs are an application of NLP, built using deep learning, which is a type of machine learning, which is all part of AI. See? It all connects. It feels like some kind of crazy magic, right? But what if I told you that at its very core, an LLM is doing one incredibly simple task over and over again? Its only job is to look at a chunk of text and predict the most likely next word. That's it. It just does that billions and billions of times with incredible accuracy to build sentences, then paragraphs, then whole essays. And just look at how ridiculously good they've become at that one simple task. This chart shows something called a perplexity score. It's basically a measure of how confused a model is when it's trying to predict that next word. And lower is way, way better. Old school NLP models, way up here, super confused. But look at where today's LLMs are. They're down here, getting scarily close to how well we humans can do it.
So what's the secret? How did they get so good, so fast? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is something called the context window. Think about it. Older models could only remember the last 3 words or so. It's like having the memory of a goldfish. But modern LLMs, they can remember and consider over 8,000 words of context. That massive memory is what lets them stay on topic and sound so coherent. And look, this isn't just some abstract tech for nerds. It's having a real-world impact right now. I just love this quote from Angie Frame at Humana. She says she doesn't get all the secret sauce, but she's learned she can trust it because, well, it just works. And that's what we're seeing everywhere. All right, so let's recap the whole journey, from the biggest Russian doll to the smallest. AI is the big dream. Machine learning is the primary way we make it happen by learning from data. Deep learning is a more powerful brain-like way of doing that learning. NLP is applying all that power to the specific problem of human language, and generative AI and LLMs are the very cutting edge of that, actually creating new things with language. Which, leaves us with this one kind of mind-bending question to think about. We call it generative AI. It generates new stuff. But if it only learned from data that we humans already created, is it truly being creative? Or is it just the most sophisticated remix artist the world has ever seen? Something to chew on. Thanks for sticking with me on this one.